Good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us today for TUG webinar, Order to Cash, being presented by Steve Bloesing, ERP Manager at Gypsum Management and Supply, who is going to be here and backed up by our TUG board member, Della, who is Chief Information Officer at Distributors Corp of America. Before we get started today, I'd like to give a quick plug for TUG. We're very excited to be hosting this year's conference in Dallas, and it's time for you to not only save the date, but go ahead and register. Our loyal fan rate is available only until midnight tomorrow, so that relates to a substantial savings for those who trust us to put together an optimum program before our official agenda is released. So you want to go and jump over to our website as soon as I share with you who our speakers are going to be this year. The keynote on Monday, March 9th is going to be Nick Tassler, who is author and thought leader, and he will deliver the keynote. Nick is an internationally acclaimed thought leader, organized psychologist, and #1 best-selling author of 4 counterintuitive books on the art and science of making decisions and leading change. And then on Tuesday, March 10th, you'll be hearing from new Infor CEO Kevin Samuelson on the changes coming from Infor, and also from Kelly Squazzaro, Infor's Director of Industry and Solution Strategy on changes and distributions in the distribution industry. So save the dates now. Get your registration in by visiting our TUG website, where you can go ahead and the registration is live. And without any further ado, I am going to transfer the power of the screen over to Steve. And Steve, if you want to go ahead and grab that, allowing us to see your screen, I'll let you know as soon as we see your computer, and take it away.
Good afternoon or good morning to everyone. My name is Steve Bloesing again. I am the ERP Manager for Gypsum Management and Supply, and I've been working with SX.enterprise for a little over 20 years now. I'm going to show you guys basically your order entry to cash, kind of the flow of an order and how it goes through its life. I'm going to do everything in Web UI. It's kind of where one of our companies has gone now. So from there, let's go ahead and start. There are multiple ways to navigate through here. There's a great YouTube on how to navigate through SX.enterprise. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on that. I've kind of found it's gotten really easy for me to move off these menus. So I will tend to use those over there. So I'm going to go to where I can enter a sales order. This is what the sales order entry banner now looks like, if y'all are used to that term, banner. You can create a new order. That's the mode that I'm in. I can maintain an existing one. I can cancel one from here. We're going to go ahead and start with a new one. And much like it was in graphical audit, I don't necessarily need to know a customer number. So I'm just going to use a guy that I know. I'm not tied to a warehouse now, so I need to enter that information in. And then I'm going to choose one of their ship tos. Now you'll notice that it keeps popping up. I've used things in the past, so they kind of follow me through here, and it gives me choices of those. So that's why I got a ship to coming up there. Some of this other information can be set as required, yes or no. For now, we're not going to do that. So I'm going to go ahead and start my order now. This probably looks very different to any of you who've been using SX.enterprise, but if you're using web, you're probably used to it. I'm going to show you a couple of neat features. Where did the header page go? It's actually under this customer order settings, and you can see that this is the majority of the information that you saw when on the old, what was called header page. So I'm going to drill back over there. Now, if I need to edit the address that this order is going to, there's a button over here where I can edit that address. Those two pieces of information used to be on one page in the old SX.enterprise, both character and graphical. They're on different pages now. Neat little feature I want to show it before I leave here. We now have the ability to, once you start an order, if you had used SX.enterprise in the past, you knew you couldn't change the ship to or the customer or the warehouse. Well, they've given you the ability now to reassign customer and ship to. This is a security setting, and I'll show you real quick that is. This is my operator security settings, and it is found under order entry options. Or entry options in a section called OE entry options. We have a new security handle that says allow reassign customer or ship to. So if I'm fat fingering an order or I messed up and I need to change the customer, I now have the ability to do it because I have security. Now, now, line item entry, that's kind of where we are. There's 3 different what are called modes in order entry now. One of them, the one that I first went to, is called easy mode, where it works a lot like Amazon. So I'm going to show you. I'm just going to look for, we carry drywall in my company, so I'm going to look for 5/8 fire code drywall, and it brings up a lot like what you're used to seeing in an Amazon page. It's bringing up products that met that. So you see that I've got a product description. We could actually attach pictures to these products if we wanted to. I see prices. I see units of measure. I actually see in-stock availability also. So I'm going to grab one of these down here that has some and say, hey, I want to get 10 of those. Now, I could go to other products in here and add them to it, but I'm just going to do a simple one. So I'm going to say add that item. And what happens when I do that is you'll see over here on the right-hand side, I now have my first line. Well, that's one entry mode that I'm in. So I'm going to show you, I can switch this anytime when I'm in an order. I'm going to go to what's called quick mode. This is if I actually know products a little better, or maybe, you know, I still can do some lookups in here, because as I start typing a part number, you're seeing it's logically doing what's called an elastic search. And it's actually finding the products in here and saying, hey, I found a product that kind of meets what you're typing in there. Is that what you want? The only difference that I found in here is, and it may be because we don't have any prices set up, is that I need to enter the price in here. And once I do, what this is going to do is start creating a list for me where I can keep track of things and whatnot. I have not added a line yet. You can see there's not an additional line over here. When I'm done with this easy mode, I have to tell SX that I actually want to add that line. And when I do, it now shows up over here. So that's 2 ways of entering. The last one is very similar to what we've all been used to if you've been using SX.enterprise in the past. It's called advanced mode. This looks very similar to what graphical and character trend or SX used to look like. I've got a line number, I've got a line type, I've got a product field, and I'm going to go ahead and pull one of my products by mold, and I'm going to go with 08, and I've got one in here. Now, I've purposely pulled this one because this one has 0 net availability, because I want to show you one of the things that I haven't, and that is typically when you're doing a product that has 0 availability or less than what you're ordering, you usually get a message, something to the effect of, hey, this is going to schedule a back order, you didn't have enough to fit this. So where is that message now? Messages now appear at the bottom right-hand corner of your screen, and you can see this is your standard message. When I created an OAN product or a product that had less than what I needed for that order, it gave me that message. All right, so I've done a very simple order here. I want to show you how to edit any of these lines over here. Once I have some lines, I have this wonderful little thing over here called edit lines. When I click it, it now shows me my existing 3 lines up here. Couple of choices up here. You can say, hey, I want to show comment lines. If you actually use the comment lines feature, if you use subtotals, you get to choose to see them or not. And if you have any canceled lines on there, possibly you want to see them just to see what you did with them. So it's your choice what you make up here. But let's say I want to go back to that line where I had a short on there and I didn't have enough to fill the order. Well, I need to source this to a PO, right? Order is needed, probably product, didn't have enough for the customer, I need to source it. My sourcing and pricing information is found in the middle of the screen when you're working on a particular line. So I'm going to go ahead and source this a purchase order, just like it does in old SX.enterprise, brings up the ARP vendor for that particular product. And do I allow back orders or yes or no? Instead of hitting enter or update or OK, you're going to find submit buttons here in Web UI. So now I have tied that. Here's my message down here. Sourcing data has been accepted. And as soon as I update that line, I get another message. My PO has been created. So I've kind of gone through the easy pieces of entering products in here. Let me show you one other thing on orders, and that is if I want to maybe tender this. So I am going to get out of the edit lines. I'm going to finish what I was doing there. Actually, I finished my order, so let me go back and maintain that one. All right, pretty easy to do. It just followed me back in there. And remember, I had some products on there that didn't fill. So lines 1 and 2 filled, line 3 didn't. So you need to determine when you're doing a tendering of an order, what is it going to be based on? Is it based on what the customer is walking out the door with or what they ordered? Typically, non-stocks orders needed. Maybe we're going to ask for them to pay up for them up front. A little known, and I've discussed this with plenty of people. I had questions about it. Where is this amount coming from? Well, it's based on one of these totals by over here. There is a default for it at the customer level. We at my company use what are called cash customers. We have walk-ins, so we set up a customer called cash. Whenever somebody walks in, we want them to pay for the whole order no matter what. So what we have done on that particular customer, and I'm jumping over to a customer record, is we've set their payment, their tender by over here to ordered amount. So now when we do an order for that particular cash customer, when we get to the tendering page of that order, the default amount automatically is based on what they ordered, not the quantity shipped. So it makes it easy. It made it easier for our cash purposes and whatnot. So everybody's good with that, and it helps a lot in that respect, especially if they walk out the door and you forgot to get them to pay for a non-stock item. Now that default actually works that way. When you are doing tendering, it works a little bit different in web over here. So I'm going to show you, I'm going to split this up into a couple of different ones. I'm going to go ahead and say based on ordered amount, and you can see it now switch the amount to say, hey, they owe us $374.82 based on what they ordered, not what they're walking out the door with. I'll do cash for $100, and then once I do that, I need to say, hey, I need to add another payment type if there are any additional ones in there. So let's say we're going to do the remainder on his MasterCard Visa, and you can see it automatically defaults to the remainder type. Last thing I need to do in here is I need to accept the payment, but I also want to bring to your attention when you're in tendering, which is one of the more tricky pieces of order entry, if I had made a mistake or I need to go back or the customer comes back and says, wait, I don't need that. You need to kind of do what's called cancel your tendering work to get back into the order, all right? Otherwise, it's going to think, once you get to the tendering page, and I always taught people this, once you got to the tendering page, stop, ask them how they're going to pay for it, wait till you have the money in your hand, then go ahead and tender it. But if you don't, and the customer changed their mind, you have this wonderful cancel work here. When I click it, you'll see it reset everything back to the way it was. So I'm just going to go back through that exercise again. Let's do cash of $100. And then we're going to add another payment type, and we'll change it to MasterCard Visa, the remainder going on it. Once I do that, I choose Accept Payment. Here's my wonderful open journal window, which I hope you've told all your people, don't touch the window. Leave the period and the posting date alone on those, and just click OK. So once I have done that, now I've got my tendered amount. Well, I want to see how an order was tendered. Where is that information when I'm in the order? It is down here in the payment history. I did have to click a button that said show more, and now you can see how I tendered that order. $100 in cash and $274.82 in Visa and MasterCard. If I want to collapse that information, I just click the show less and it's back to where it was. All right? Very, very, very simple. All right? When I'm ready to finish my order, I simply click my finish button up there and my order is finished. Now, I do want to show you, orders do have a life. So I'm going to use a different method of moving around through here, and I'm going to go to the acronym since I know it. The neat thing that I found about web is when somebody new comes on board, you do not have to know acronyms. You can learn them over time, but they're really not important anymore. So I'm going to look at this order, and then what I'm honing in on or trying to figure out is what stage it's in. Right now, it's in ordered stage, okay? So what's the next piece of the life of a sales order? Well, typically that is I need to print something for the warehouse to pull the product for this particular order. So I'm going to go actually do that by going to OE reports, and I have an intent here, and that is to show you a couple of the options that are here in what's called a pick ticket processing run. All right, if I'm just going to go do one order, which I will in just a second. Actually, I'll just print a bunch of them just to move them that way. All right. Let me show you some of the options in OEPP. The ranges in this particular process are not necessarily important unless you are using route day stops and or ship vias. Those are the two typical things that I've seen in pig ticket runs that'll be set up. These are ranges, beginning and ending, beginning, ending. So I can set those or leave them alone. If I leave them alone, then it's just going to pick up anything based on my options back here. Now, in here, I have to design a warehouse, and if I'm setting up stored reports or pig ticket runs that run throughout the day, I want to make sure that I set this enter list of orders to no. Now, what do some of these things mean in here? A lot of these are very vague, and you don't really understand what is an option. So I want to cover some of the more important ones. This one, number 6, print changes only. Let's say an order's been moved to pick stage, and you've got your back order set to pick. That means a back order has been created. So number 1, who do I want changing an order of that type? And if they do change it, how do I want the changes to be printed out? If I leave this to no, then it only prints the new items or the changes themselves. Or I'm sorry, if I leave it to no, it pre-prints the whole order. If I set it to yes, then it only prints the changes. And that would be something the warehouse would have to learn, is go find the original and attach the change to it so they know what the change was. If I leave it to no, it reprints a whole new one. And again, go find the original, get rid of it now because I now have a new one. What does this reserve inventory before picking do? That one is a super interesting one, and I had to read a little bit about it. The default is yes, and I would suggest highly that you leave it to that because it does one of 3 things. It reserves inventory that may have arrived after the order had been entered. So the order hadn't been picked yet, it's still in ordered stage, and you had some shortage on that order. If material arrives that can fill it, if this is set to yes, then as the pick ticket process runs, it will go out there and look for additional inventory and fill it if possible. It also fills orders in the order stage where the back order flag is no. So remember, we have a customer setting that says, will they allow back orders, yes or no? If their back order flag is set to no, but the order is still in order stage and we're just now printing it for the first time, trend with this setting set to yes, we'll go out there and find additional inventory and fill the orders with that inventory. So pretty neat little thing. It also fills order as needed products that haven't been tied yet. So if it, again, during the process, it goes out there and looks for inventory if that is set to yes, and will fill the order with that stuff, right? If anybody uses ship complete, these are fairly confusing, so I just want to cover them real quick. Pack means it'll print a packing slip when the receipts are made. So when all the receipts are made, it'll print a packing slip. If I choose stage, it prints items as they become available. So you could end up with maybe 5 or 6 different pick tickets, all same order number, but different ones. Both says it'll print a packing slip and allow you to stage. So once everything has been received, then you get a packing slip for that, right? Full means a full packing slip will only print when everything is ready. So number 10 up there deals specifically with ship complete orders. All right. A couple of new ones, or fairly new ones. Sorry, I've been working with SX.enterprise for a few years. This one, print internal comments. When you add a comment to a sales order, there's 2 choices. It's either printed or internal. Internal, if you want it to actually print on the pick ticket, this would need to be set to yes, and the only people would see it would be the people who are handling the pick ticket, typically the warehouse people. Your customer may not need to know that information. Maybe you're giving specific directions to the warehouse people. This is a neat way to do it at the line item as opposed to adding an order note that may be seen by several people. Now, 18 has to do with back orders. If you have your pick ticket run set up to run multiple times throughout the day, and you've got an administrative option that when you do receiving, you don't print pick tickets, I would look at setting this at least to yes once a day. So as items come into your warehouse and they're filling back orders, when should those back orders print? Well, it looks at this little option here and says, hey, should I print them now that we brought some material in? So again, set that one to at least, if you're running multiple pick ticket runs, at least one of them should have that set to yes. All right, so that is kind of my pig ticket run. I'm going to go ahead and run this one just for today. And I'll cross my fingers that I did it correctly and that my order moves to its different stage. All right, it picked up a bunch of orders out there, I can tell. All right, so that's the second stage of the life of an order is once we print it and we print it to the warehouse, you can see right here that my order has now been moved to pick stage. There is security around this now. There are several authorization points and a security setting that says who has the ability to go change orders that are in pick stage, because the idea is that the warehouse is working on it, so I need to be very careful about what I change on that order. Right? Next stage of an order is that I need to go ship it. So I'm going to go to the area in SX where I actually ship orders. Now, a lot of people, you do it by a piece of paper. So the easiest way to do that is if I have pieces of paper, typically pick tickets in front of me, I'm going to use what's called quick ship. And I'm simply going to put in an order number here. All right? This is the order that I've been working with. If I want to see the detail, I'll click on detail, and you can see that I should have my 2 lines. And you can see that this third line hasn't come in yet, so the quantity shipped on it is 0. I have the ability in shipping feedback to deal with what are called quantities, all right? You don't see any prices in this grid. That shipping feedback is typically a warehouse function, so what I've got here is the ability that a warehouse person would do. Maybe I dropped one off the truck and whoops, now I only have 9, so I'm going to change that to 9. Then I have to be concerned with anytime I short things of does the customer want a back order or not. This came from originally from the customer or ship to setting, and again from when the order was entered. What is it? But it is changeable here at shipping feedback. So if I want to do that, I can do that. And that's pretty much the way I work in shipping feedback. So once I have all that information in there, I'm going to go back to shipping detail. Oops, let me go back there. There are a couple of other things that I can change in shipping feedback from a warehouse perspective. There is header information that I kind of add here. Maybe if I need to add freight, they didn't know when they took the order how much freight there would be. Here is where I have the ability to get into my add-ons and say, hey, I want to add a new add-on. I want to add freight as a $100, let's say. So I'm going to do about 100 on there. So that would be okay. Now I've added $100 freight. So again, shipping feedback, think of it, it's a warehouse function. Typically somebody in the warehouse is doing it. So I should have the ability to do warehouse functions in there. I want to show you another neat little function in here in shipping feedback. And I'm going to pick a particular order that I know is big. In my company, we deal with a lot of material that may not fit on a truck. So in this instance, I grabbed an order where the customer ordered a lot of a particular piece of material, 1,612. And I know for sure that will not fit on one single truck. So what do I do with an order of that type? Well, I'm going to show you real quick. I've got the ability to do something with this order, and that is called split to back order. When I choose that in this order, what it's going to do is show me that line item in particular. And it's going to say, hey, you got 1,600 or some odd, and I need to split this up. So what I'm going to do is change the quantity back order to let's say 806. Let's just split it in half. All right. Oops, my bad. I'm going to cancel. Let's go back in here. I want to change the quantity shipped to 806. When I do, you can see what it does is automatically change the quantity back order to Della. This is actually creating a back order from shipping feedback and saying, hey, enough of it doesn't fit on the truck, so I need to split it up into 2 orders. Now, I could take this new order that it's going to create, the 01, so it would be order 1565691-01, and I could ship it also, but it would go on a different truck. So now I have 2 packing slips for 2 different orders. The order number is the same, but the suffix is a little different because they fit on different trucks. So that is a neat little feature that came out in SX.enterprise some 6 or 8 years ago, but I did want to show you that. So I'm going to go ahead and cancel what I'm doing here and go out. All right. So my order, I should have shipped it. I'm going to go ahead and ship. Oops, that was the wrong one. I want to go back to my other one. Go ahead and ship it. It's as simple as that. Shipping an order, very simple. Here's my message down here. Your order has been shipped. If I need to change my mind and go, whoops, I need to do something else, I forgot the freight or the freight wasn't right, you can always unship the order. And again, there's the message that you're typically used to seeing if you've been using SX. Unship the order. If I say yes, it would unship it. Now, just to verify, let's see what stage my order is in. It should be in ship stage now that I have shipped it. So we have gone through 3 steps of the life of an order. It is in ship stage now. So this is all handling the order, customer service, warehouse handling it through picking, typically warehouse shipping it. What's the next step? The next step in any sales order's life is for it to be billed, and that is called invoice processing. Most everybody has this set up to run on its own. It was typically a stored report, but I want to show you a couple of little ins and outs on this and cover a couple of gotchas when you're running invoice processing, all right? If you happen to run invoice processing manually, I do want to bring something to your attention, and that is this little option up here. We have several yards that I work with that manually run invoice processing, and they simply take pieces of paper and enter them. When this option right here, only shipped orders, is set to yes, invoice processing ignores, and I'm going to reiterate that, ignores any ranges you chose over here. The other thing it ignores, when I enter a list, it ignores this option right here, only shipped orders. So if you key in, if you have number 6 set to enter a list of orders, yes, and you enter a list of orders, option number 1 is ignored, and all the ranges are ignored because it assumes you're putting in the order numbers, you know which ones need to be billed. So that's very important to remember. That's a little gotcha in there in OEPI, and it's bitten some of my people in the past. All right, I missed something, so I'm going to go back on this. In web, there's this cool, neat little feature now called, there's a new OE report. If you want to run it before you run invoicing, you can run what's called a pre-invoicing report. And I have 4 pages of reports over here, so I'm going to find, whoops, there it was on page 2. There's a new one now here called OE pre-invoicing exceptions. There are about 112 exceptions that could ever come out whenever you run OE invoicing or invoice processing. I've got to list them somewhere, but there's documentation on them. I won't go through a lot of them, but typically I want to know because some of them will hold up that order from invoicing. Well, this neat little report will actually look at them now and say, there's a problem with this order. It won't invoice when you try to invoice it, and you can take care of it before you invoice. For any of you who are using OEIX or order entry inquiry exceptions, that is your invoice exception inquiry screen, you can now run this report and you won't need to use OEIX anymore because I'll now know what my exceptions are and take care of them before they get there. All right, we have gone through 4 steps in an order's life. So we've gone through, I'm going to go back and summarize. We've gone through the order entry piece of it. I've shown you how to do some things in order entry. The pick process, hopefully I explained some of those options in the pick process run, and then shipping feedback. Again, fairly simple, but I did want to bring to that split to back order function. And the last thing is the order gets invoiced. Now, this is what we all hope for, that the customer is going to pay us for those orders. So let's get to that piece of it. Let's go into customers and entry and cash receipts, all right? This is always a fun little screen, and we'll open a journal as soon as I get in there. So just like it does in graphical, it goes ahead and opens the journal for me. I want to tell my people, just say okay to that question. Don't be changing that. All right, screen looks a little different if you're used to error entry cash receipts, and I want to show you some features in here. One is, here are your different types. You can either make what's called a customer payment. You can do what's called split check. I'm going to get you away from that one. Maybe the customer just called you up or sent you an email that said, hey, those credits that I have out there, I want to use them and apply them. You don't have a check number, you don't have a Visa, you don't have a MasterCard or anything, so you would just choose apply credits, and then it will allow you, once you get in there, to use the credits and pay off certain things. COD, if any of you use COD terms types, those come in as a different little animal. Typically it is the customer is paying for some specific invoice. So when you choose cash on delivery in AR cash receipts, it only asks you for an invoice number, all right? And then every once in a while, we get some wonderful things like some golf proceeds or golf tournament proceeds. We'll enter some miscellaneous cash. It would ask for me what the other side of that GL entry would be. So it'll ask for an income account. Now, before I get too far, I want to show you a neat little feature over here, and that is when you're dealing with customers who have credits, sometimes it's nice to see them all in one screen. Well, that's what this little checkbox on the left-hand side says. View the credits with the invoices. And when I get into this customer's account and see all the open invoices, I'm going to show you. I don't have to flip back and forth between pages to see his credits like you did with older versions of SX.enterprise. So let's go ahead and do a payment. I'm going to say check number 100 for $1,000. Today's the date that I go next. Now, my choices are to just look at all the open invoices for a customer. If I have a lockbox, I could use that lockbox number and post against it. Or I can use a specific customer's invoice. Depending on what I choose in here, the boxes will change a little bit in here. So you can see I toggle back and forth. Now, this is an interesting one. What is this group thing? Let me show you really quick what this one is. We have a group in this particular company called Precision Walls. There are about 6 different customers who are under this umbrella or customer umbrella. And I want to show you how this works and why, once I show it to you, that you can probably get away from using split checks. The bad thing about split checks is once you get into them in AR entry cash receipts or in my cash receipts entry window, I cannot back out. I can't cancel my work and back out. I have to finish what I'm doing. So the hard thing about split checks was you had to finish it and you may have ended up with a big unapplied cash balance or something like that. You were not allowed to cancel out of it. So this is the way to get around split checks, is to add customers to a group. When I say next on this, I want to show you really quickly, and I'm going to show you some other feature in web here too while I'm at it, kill a couple birds with one stone. You see there's a customer number column over here. Well, that's interesting. Why would it post that? Well, I'm dealing with a group now, and there are multiple customers over there. I'm going to take this column and I'm going to sort it. And all I did was use this little customer over here. This is the neat thing that you can do in web. You can sort by column headings. So I did that in this particular one. And I'm going to go over to maybe page, I don't know. Right now I'm looking at invoices for customer 1457. But as I keep scrolling through the pages, wait, there's a new customer, 1572. Why is he showing up there? Because he was part of this PW group. All right, and if I keep scrolling, I'll get to another customer number here, 2362. You mean I can take one check and post it to multiple customers? Yes, and I am not using split check functionality. So because I'm not using split check, I have the ability to back out of here at any time. That's that previous button, and this is the typical message you would get in cash receipts, that if you need to back out, when you hit previous, or do you want to cancel all your work? If I say yes, it backs me back out to where I started. So hopefully you guys are seeing that I do not need to use split checks. Well, where is that group located? Really quickly, I'm going to go back over to a customer record over here, and on the general page is where I would assign them to a group. And that group is, sorry, it is on here on the general page. I'm probably just, there it is right there. So the groups are set up in AR setup groups, and then you just attach the group to a customer. And now you can do cash receipts for a group of customers and not worry about split checks, right? Let's go back here and let's just do a simple customer. So I'm going to use that guy I was using before. Again, I do not need to know a customer number. That's one of the cool things about web. I just type in their name. Much like you could in graphical, you could do that. This bank account is coming from the customer that I chose. So the default for this comes from the customer that I chose. All right, if I click next now, I should just see invoices for this particular customer. But I want you to know Remember, I checked this checkbox over here on the left-hand side that said, show me the credits with the invoices. Well, here's the credits. I don't have to switch over to the credits page to find them and apply them now. Now I can apply them right here all in one screen. And there are multiple ways that you can do application of cash here. You can, if you're a happy click person, I can say, hey, I want that credit, and then I'm going to choose this invoice. Once I've got them chosen, now I have the ability to come over here and say, mark them as paid in full. Right? That's one way to do that. If I want to reset my stuff back, I just use my reset button and it will reset all the rows that I just did. All right, so you can see these are set back. Most of the accounts receivable people that I worked with or do work with like to use this paid in full column. They want to find the invoice and mark it. So I just marked that first one, and now I'm going to down arrow. That's what I'm using on my keyboard to this next one that I want to choose. And to check it, I just hit my space bar. Right? So that's an easy thing to use your keyboard when you're doing that. And you can see, as I mark them as paid in full, it uses the full apply amount on here, right? As you're going through cash receipts or cash receipt entry, always, it keeps track of what you're doing. I have $1,999 available to post. That is the $1,000 check I put in plus the $999 miscellaneous credit. So I now have $691 left over to apply. All right. I'm going to undo that one so I can make this simpler. I got $19.99 left because I want to show you some other features in here. Let's say I've got an invoice and the customer wanted to pay in full, but they wanted to. I need to write off part of it. All right. The way to do that is to mark an invoice as paid in full, but your apply amount would be less than that. So I'm going to say $1,999 is what I'm going to apply to this. And if I did my math right, yep, my proof is 0. Now, when you do that, the write-off window automatically pops up. The key in there is to mark the invoice as paid in full, and the apply amount is less than the invoice amount. The write-off window automatically comes up. So it's assuming I need to write off $587.53. Well, if that happened to be part of tax write-off, then I need to choose this and say write-off tax. And within this window, I would choose those two tax amounts. Now, they don't actually add up, but that's okay. This is the way to write off taxes in cash receipts entry, right? I can always cancel what I'm doing by just saying delete or reset those. So I'm going to reset those and go back to where I was. All right. Cancel. Sorry, I was looking for my cancel button up there. Ready to cancel? Yep. Typically, anytime you're canceling, you'll get a little warning message. Are you sure you want to cancel your work? Because it's going to cancel everything. Some other things that you can do in here, so I'm going to mark those as unapplied. You have the ability to do what's called auto apply. If you have customers who pay by their statement, auto apply is a really cool feature. It will take whatever the check amount is, and based on the dates on the invoices, apply them appropriately, and then if there's any left over, it may partial apply. There are rules that go on with auto apply, and that is, do you want to do everything except service charges or service charges only, and then it'll start picking up invoices. There are also rules that go around the discounts. Take the default, which means if it's still available, take it. Take all regardless, or take no. So you do have rules when it comes to auto apply. A couple of other things real quick. Let me grab this one right here and show you. Hey, this one's way past its due date, but I feel generous today, and I want to give the guy his original discount. So once I have one of them highlighted, if I click original discount, you can see it plopped back in for me what the original discount on that order was. At any point in time, you can always reset your information in here. So this will reset the rows that I had highlighted. So cool little features. When you are done with it, finish will do it. I've got $1,000 left over, so it's going to apply $1,000 to unapplied cash. Customer overpaid. That will show up in reference in your AR inquiry windows. So once I'm done with that, I say, okay, now I'm back to enter the next payment. All right, so summarizing, and I went 2 minutes over, which is pretty good. I've gone through order entry, showed you some tricks in there in the entering an order. The pick process, important to understand those options. Shipping feedback, what do I have the ability to do? Typically it's warehouse functions, right? But it's cool if you run trucks and things don't fit on them to use that split to back order. Invoice processing, typically an automated process, but remember now I have a pre-invoicing exceptions report that I can use, and pretty cool to catch the ones before they actually get invoiced. And then hopefully I showed you some neat tricks here in cash applications. It's a lot more intricate than that. There's a lot of other features in there, but I showed you the majority of them. So it is 2:43. I'm 3 minutes over. I am going to stop here and now open it up to questions.
Thank you, Steve. We have a couple of questions. So first one, when we went, let's go back to the invoice where you tendered, but you added freight after the spec. How would you collect that money if you've already tendered, if you go back in and add freight?
So if I go back in and add freight at shipping feedback?
Yes.
Okay. If it was a stock order and I tendered it, and it was tendered with a credit card, I will tell you there is a feature in the credit card which will try to go out there and get another authorization for that additional amount. If it was done with cash, depending on how you had your customer set up, it would hold it up and you'd find it in your new pre-invoicing exception report. If the customer had terms, it would take that additional $100 and add it as an invoice amount and say, hey, I'm just going to go ahead and bill them for this. So it would net the remaining amount, and if the customer had proper terms, it would go ahead and create an AR entry for that. You'd have an invoice and accounts receivable for that additional amount. Does that answer that question?
Yep, I think that does. Excellent. Thank you.
Okay. Yep.
Okay. Let's see. Let me go back up here to the top. What is the functionality for doing installment sales, or is there functionality? So I think installed sales would be probably different.
Installment sales. Wow, that's a tough one. I need a little more information. Sorry, I'm not completely familiar with that.
Yeah, and I'm not either. This is from Larry Hogue. Larry, what you might do, can you, while I'm asking these other questions, in that question box, could you expand on that question a little bit? So our next question is from Julie Fitzgerald. Is ARECE the main reason for AR groups?
No, actually the reason the groups were designed, and I'm going to go back to the days that I'll say this quietly, I used to work for Infor. The reason groups were designed was customers were getting bought out, and you maybe had 2 or 3 different ARSC or AR customer master records in your system, but they were now one customer. There is additional functionality in groups. You can set a terms type for the whole group. You can set a hold period for the whole group. You can set the service charges yes or no for the whole group. So there is additional functionality for the group. There's also the group is used in some inquiry screens in AR. It's also used in some credit reporting purposes in there. So the group is included in some of the ranges in some of your AR reports. But that was the gist behind the groups, was different customers were consolidating or getting bought up by bigger customers, and you had to move accounts receivable balances from the old customer to the new one. You don't need to do that anymore. You can actually add them as a group. So that was the whole reason behind that functionality.
Thank you.
Yep.
Oh, and let's see, Katie's asking where to find the basic navigation training on YouTube. Katie, if you go out to the TUG site, there is a YouTube icon, and you will see all the different training sessions, and I believe there's one out there for navigation.
There absolutely is,
Raven,
and I would highly recommend that you go see it. I was remiss and didn't look at these until about 3 or 4 months ago. They are fantastic.
excellent. And can I get a recording of this webinar? Absolutely. It will be out there on in that same area. It'll be out on the TUG site, so you'll have this recording. Give it a day for them to be able to put it out there. From Nick, we have OEEPP option number 10, used mainly for ship complete, tag and hold, or both. Can you talk a little bit about the option again?
Yes, I can. So let me go back to that one. Actually, I'm going to bring up some doc if you guys don't mind. Y'all can still see my screen, right? Welcome to my world, guys. I deal with 38 companies across the board. So I'm going to pop into one of them real quick because I know I can get what's called a field help on this particular one. If my little icons will work. Yep. All right. I just had to be patient. This is documentation. If you're using SX.enterprise right now, you can find it in web. I'm not well-versed in finding it as well in web, so I'm going to fall back on my old days and go, hey, I can find it in graphical in there. There is a particular grid for it, and I wish I would have presented that, but I'll show you that grid as soon as I get into this company. So there's a couple of different flags when it deals with ship complete orders. It also fits in with a flag called changes only yes or no. So as I get to that grid, and I'm hoping it'll go there, you know what? I will post that out there. If everybody's part of TUG Forum, I'll go ahead and post that out there because my session seems to be running a little slow there. But there is a grid, so I'll go ahead and post it on TUG Forum, or you can send me an email. Della, is my email available on this somewhere?
It should be out on the TUG Forum site.
Okay. All right, go ahead and ask the next question while I'm popping in here now that I've gotten in here, and I'll show you where that is. Actually, here, I'll show you real quick. All right, so under here in any report in here, I can find these, and I'm going to go down to the one that talks about ship complete. So this is a whole grid when it comes to ship complete orders. Pack prints a complete packing ship. So if you can get into the help, this, I will tell you, is immensely helpful when you're dealing with ship complete orders and pick tickets. Really, it depends on how your warehouse wants to handle them, right? I had differing warehouses. Some would want to stage the items because they had a staging area. Others were like, you know what? I don't want it until everything's here and then print it. That would be the F, pack if full. All right. Others would say, I want to do both. I want to get a packing slip, plus I want to be able to stage them, so on and so forth. But it also fits in with this print changes only, yes or no. All right? Hopefully that helps.
Excellent. The next question is, when you source via purchase order and split to back order, does this break any ties between the customer order and the purchase order?
No. That was an easy one. No.
Yeah. Okay, customer is asking, this clarifies, I think, on Larry's deal. So customer is asking to pay for the purchase in multiple installments. The $60,000 order the customer wants to pay over 3 months, $20,000 a month. Wouldn't that be split terms?
That would be split terms, or once the invoice is made, you can go into AR entry, maintain transaction. So for any transaction in here, and let me see, one of my test systems, sorry about that. If I get, all right. I will tell you that in AR entry maintain transaction, you do have the ability to do what's called split. So let's say they have a $50,000 invoice and they tell you, hey, I can't pay that all at once. You could take that schedule pay, that's what's created whenever an AR transaction gets created. You could take that single schedule pay and split it into 5 different schedule pays with 5 different due dates and or discount dates on them. It is a function in AR entry maintain transactions.
Is there any way to print an invoice for that balance? So if you split it into the 3 $20,000 payments, could you print an invoice
That's a good question. I do not know the answer to that. Sorry.
Yeah, and I don't either. We'd have to look at that. My first
Yeah,
instinct is no, I don't think we can.
well, I know you
Unless
can do it. I know you can do it if you start a blanket order, because if you utilize blanket orders, let's say, and I use those at several of my companies, we get one big corporate order, so we deal with what's called subdivisions. They're going to build 48 houses in this subdivision. They give us a whole order for all 48 houses, but different pieces of the houses are going to go on different dates. So we do a blanket order, and when you do, you can utilize what is called lump sum billing. You can bill them all for the whole thing up front. You can bill them for a portion of it. You can bill them for whatever you want. But on that first invoice, it will print with what you chose to say, hey, I want to lump sum bill them by this. I do not, and I haven't been well versed, but I'll certainly try, but I haven't tried that with a stock order.
Yeah, there's no lump sum bill with the stock order. So at this point, you would have to use the blanket. But you could, totally independent of any product that's sent on the release, you can create the release for $20,000, even if you send all of the items on that. Well, but the problem is then you'd have to have like a non-stock or something to be able to create the other two releases.
Yeah.
So that we know for sure would work. Well, I'm just making a note, and we'll have to take a look and see. There is an AR invoice print that we generally use for service charges, but I don't know that it would print off for a split invoice. So I'm going to take a look at that AR invoice and see if it would work for that.
Okay.
Okay. Let's see. We talked about where you access the YouTube videos, so definitely go to tug.org. And let's look. And I believe that's it. All the questions that I have. Gloria, do you want to open it for anybody that wants to just ask a question? Raise a hand.
Let's see if anybody has a raised hand here. Raymond, I am going to unmute you here. Let's see. Whoop. Raymond, did you have a question?
No, I asked it through the chat. I think I'm fine. I'm just asking, can I get a copy of the webinar?
Okay, let me just keep checking here. Let's see if anyone else has a raised hand. We've had a significant drop off, and I think that all of our questions have pretty much been answered, and they have access to both of your means of contact with email, correct? Or do you want to give a shout out for that?
They're actually out on the site, so they can access right on the forum.
Okay, great, wonderful. I think that concludes everything. Thank you so much for such great meaty content, Steve. We appreciate your time. Della, always yours as well. And this will be available within approximately 24 hours for viewing on our TUG website. Thanks so much for joining us today. And as they say in Hollywood, that's a wrap.
Thank you all.